Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in a digital game called Slay the Princess. This is a game that a friend told me about, and he hooked me with two words, time loop, which I had heard of this game before. I knew it was kind of a narrative-driven game where you're making decisions and maybe branching paths, but I did not know that it was a time loop game. And after playing it, I think it is a rather brilliant time loop game. Time loop is one of my favorite genres of fiction in any game. Slay the Princess has a very unique aesthetic. It looks like this. It's mostly black and white. There might be a little bit of color in the game, but it's almost entirely black and white. And the theme of the game, the idea of the game, is that you are told by a narrator. You can see the narrator here. You were told by the narrator that you need to go to a little cabin in the woods and you need to slay the princess there. And so the entire game is told through text and images. You can see the images, and and you're given text options. So the narrator might say, you need to go to this cabin and slay the princess. And then you are given a bunch of options as to what you can say back to the narrator. You can say things like, why would I kill the princess? And the narrator will say that, as very early in the game, the narrator will say, if you don't slay the princess, the world is going to end. Or you could ask other, like, you just have a bunch of different narrative options as to what you can ask, what you can say, even what you can do. The very first thing that I did in the game is I said, I don't want to kill anyone. I'm going to walk away from this. And of course, well, actually, I won't say what happens because I don't want to spoil anything about the game. But there are consequences to every choice that you make, and a bunch of different branching paths. The genius of the game, though, isn't just in those initial choices. And the dialogue is a lot of fun. There's a lot of just interesting choices, interesting dialogue between you and the narrator and between you and the princess when you finally encounter the princess. But the real hook of the game is that when you do die, and you will die in this game, and you will, that when that happens, you start the game over. But it isn't a roguelike game. Rather, it's a roguelite game, and that when you start the game over and this time loop happens, the choices that you made in the previous game and games impact the choices that you have in the next game in weird ways, in ways that I won't spoil. But that is the time loop aspect of the game, that you aren't just starting over from scratch with new information. You are starting over with the world and the princess and the narrator and yourself having changed as a result. In fact, you almost gain voices in your head that give you new dialogue options as a result of the choices that you made. Just for hypothetical random example, if you do something really terrible on the previous run, you might have a voice of empathy or compassion, or a voice of regret that is in your head from then on, and that is in your head as a new dialogue option. Every once in a while, the voice of regret might pop up and say, oh no, I'm going to regret this if I do this again. And it's a new branching path of narrative options. And also, I think I've only played through the game once, but I believe there are a bunch of different endings that you can get, and even different reasons that the princess is there based on the choices that you make. Yeah, this is just a really, really interesting game. It's a snappy game. You can go through an entire game. I played the entire game in about an hour. I did one full run of the game. So each individual loop is very, very short. And then you re-loop and the consequences happen, and you gain these voices in your head, and you go through another loop. And then you can finally come to the final conclusion of the game, or a final conclusion, in about an hour. But I really enjoyed even just that one run of it, and seeing how the choices I made, and the choices I really didn't want to make, but sometimes had to make because I ran out of options, impacted what would happen in that current story, but also the next loop as well. Just a really clever take on time loop fiction in game form, and I recommend it. I do recommend it. It is a little dark because you are being asked to kill someone in the game. And so take that with a kind of a trigger warning there. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have played this, or if you've played another time loop game, and I think I would include roguelite games in this genre of time loop games, where you're starting over, but with new information, new abilities, more options in that following loop. I'd love to hear your recommendations in the digital game genre or tabletop genre for time loops, including possibly my favorite time loop game in the tabletop genre, which is Time Stories. Feel free to talk about that. I'm always happy to talk about time stories. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments below. Thanks.